This is the Amy Edwards Show, and I'm your host, Amy. This show is here to help all of us live our best life and feel amazing at absolutely every age. We focus on transformation and empowerment through practical tools, strategies, habits, and mindset shifts that will help you unlock your potential, build self-love, and embrace your unique journey. We'll cover everything from health and wellness to personal growth and spirituality with inspiring guests and real conversations. So if you're ready to level up, break out of your comfort zone, and make lasting changes, you're in the right place. It's never too late. In fact, some of your best days haven't even happened yet. Let's get to it. Love this moment and make the next one even shinier. Hello, welcome to the Amy Edwards Show. Are you ready to do this? I am so ready to do this. I hope that this finds you well today, and we are tuning in with another awesome expert today. So join me in welcoming Ronel Golden. Ronel, you are the author of The Getting Out Guide and the founder of executive advisory firm RSRG Consulting. You have drawn from your own transformative journey that you're going to share with us today, empowering individuals to recognize and escape abusive relationships. So important. Helping people rebuild their lives and prevent re-entry into cycles of abuse. I love that part in particular. You have 7 pillars of existence, a framework that provides a structured step-by-step approach to healing and thriving after domestic violence. And you are super passionate about advocacy, education, and empowerment, and dedicated to helping others find strength and self-worth and independence. And you are an expert in domestic violence and intimate partner violence awareness, recovery, and empowerment. You are based in Houston and serve as vice chair of Rice University's Tapia Center. Did I say that right?
That's correct.
Cool. For excellence in equity and education. And your mom also, you have one son?
One son.
One son who's 23. Can't
23.
believe that. And you're all about helping people break cycles of abuse.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for having me, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Nice to be here with you.
I'm so glad you're here. And this is very aligned with a lot of things that I've been talking about lately. I just did one recently on narcissism and recognizing narcissism. And I know that abuse and narcissism can often go hand in hand, more than not. And so I guess you're all about helping people follow a specific process to get out of a cycle of abuse. But how do they even recognize that they're in a cycle of abuse?
That is the first problem.
Okay, that's number one. Okay.
Like you hit the nail on the head, because most people in abusive relationships, intimate partner violence, domestic violence, whatever you want to call it, do not know that they're being abused.
Right.
There are lots of reasons for it. It could be because they grew up in abusive households.
It seems
And so they assume that it's normal. It could be that they've never been in a relationship, and so this is their first relationship. And so they think, okay, this is normal. It could be because they're ashamed of what's happening and they've been told that it's their own fault. There's so many different reasons why people won't know that. But for me, I always say the way that you figure out that you're in an abusive relationship is by questioning yourself about the relationship. Are you happy in the relationship with the way that you're being treated by your partner? Are you being screamed at often? Are you being belittled? Have you been hit? That's typically the last thing in an abusive relationship. But when you know that something's off in your relationship, whether you've seen other relationships that are exactly the same way and things are a little bit off and people are, getting weaker and feeling less secure about themselves and are always cautious about what they say or what they do because the fact that their partners might get angry. My thing is that you need to learn what abuse means.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing. You have to go and read about what abuse is.
Right.
And I think that's the starting point. Most people do not know. So my thing is that if something is off in your relationship, then you need to start asking the questions. And that's also the way that the guide is designed. The guide doesn't start with what you should do once you're leaving your abuser, because that's a terrible starting point. It starts with what is abuse.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, what you said is that's the greatest problem. Most people do not know that they're being abused.
Well, no, because you said the last thing is getting hit. And so many times people will define it like, well, I'm not being hit, And so it's really hard to accept that there's other types of abuse and a lot of other ways it presents. I mean, I know I listen to so many podcasts where that is so common. And especially because women don't make excuses for things and rationalize it away, right? I don't know how many times you've seen that, right?
Yeah, I think that's the most common thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's okay. Okay. I think that's the most common thing is that women will rationalize, but also because they're being told that what's happening in their relationship isn't wrong. So let me take you kind of through the process the way that I see it.
Okay.
For me, the first thing is to kind of diagnose what's going on. So what you need to learn is what you are as a human being, right? You need to understand that you're not just one thing. You're not just a physical body or a brain. You are 7 different things. You're made up of your mental, psychological pillar, which is the first pillar of existence, a financial pillar, so you're a financial being. You're a physical being, which means that you are a body. You are a social being. So your social pillar is your relationships with other people. You're an environmental being. So that means where you work, what you watch, what you listen to, all these different things that influence you from the outside. Then your rights pillar is about the fact that you have human rights, you have legal rights, you have contractual rights. And then you're a spiritual being as well, which is everything that gives you hope, joy, a vision for the future, your purpose and meaning in life. So where I start is that you need to understand what you are as a human being, because before you understand that, it will be very difficult to figure out if another human being has come into your life and has harmed you in any one of those areas. And that's what abuse is. When a person comes in and they start to control and therefore harm one of your pillars of existence, it always starts with your mental, psychological pillar of existence. Because the first step of an abusive relationship is meeting somebody. Typically, that person is very nice towards you at the beginning. They start to get control over you because they're so nice to you, right? They say nice things, they build you up, they make you feel good about yourself. And therefore, you start to trust that person. You start to let them in. You start to tell them your deepest fears, your anxieties, the truths about your life that you maybe haven't told a lot of other people. And now there is an emotional bond. Once you have an emotional bond with a person, they have a lot of leeway because your brain now trusts that this person is good. So when those subtle changes start happening, saying something mean, demeaning you in some kind of a way, telling you that you're not good enough, trying to change things about you that you thought maybe were okay or were great, your brain keeps telling you that it's okay. Then when the meaner things start, the screaming or the aggressive behavior or putting it down in front of other people, typically what happens then is that there is this bad behavior followed by good behavior. The good behavior is the apology, the you're so wonderful, the I will never do it again. So your brain is working against you because you already trust this person. This person is apologizing, so you want to accept the apology. And every time you accept that apology, it opens a doorway for that person to be more abusive towards you. Then other things can follow, right? They start isolating you, so your social pillar starts getting weaker. They could potentially start taking money from you or controlling the way you spend your money, so your financial pillar starts getting weaker.
Oh, yeah.
They scream, demean you, potentially they hit you, they take away your rights. And overall, like as all these things are happening, you're spiritually, you're getting broken down more and more and more.
Yeah.
And so if you don't understand what you are as a human being, it's going to be very difficult to understand whether you've been abused, how you've been abused, and then what to do about it. Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure. You have to, and I mean, your own worth as a human being and what you are. Where did those 7 parts come from?
So when I got out of my abusive relationship, I still did not know that I was being abused, and I didn't want to acknowledge it. So the first thing that I had to do is I had to say, okay, I was in an abusive relationship, and this did happen to me, and I have to solve this problem to make sure that I don't go back to that abuser, but also that I don't go into another abusive relationship. So what I did is I spoke to a lot of victims. I sent out a lot of questionnaires, and people that I was helping, I was like, would you be willing to answer some questions for me? What are some of the reasons you stayed in this relationship so long and you couldn't get out and you kept going back to the same person who harmed you? And so out of that, I realized that this is not a one element problem. And even in the domestic violence community and the abuse community, you know, there is this domestic violence ring. But they talk about emotional, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, financial abuse, but it's not the whole picture still. So I sat down and I literally went to a friend's house. I isolated myself for 3 weeks. And I was like, how was I able to get out and stay out? And I realized that I had to get all of these parts of my life out of the abusive relationships and get control over those parts of my life again and make them independent.
Yeah.
And I literally sat down. I'm like, what were these things? What were all these elements that I had to fix? And I started with obviously mental, because then I realized that abuse is a mental issue.
For sure.
That was obvious. The financial thing, I kept going back because I was worried that I wouldn't be able to look after myself or maintain my lifestyle or whatever.
So common.
Then I thought about my body was so weak. I was so tired. I was exhausted all the time. I was nervous. My anxiety levels were through the roof. So I realized there was a physical element to it. The other thing is, I think I already said this, social isolation. The other thing was my environment, right? I didn't have a home to go to. Where would I stay? Also, I was watching maybe not uplifting things on TV. I was working in an environment where my abuser was very involved in. So I was like, environmentally, I needed to figure that out. The next thing was my rights. I didn't know what my rights were. I didn't even know that screaming at me was considered domestic violence. I didn't know that taking money from me and not giving it back when you committed to give it back was part of domestic violence. So I started learning about my rights, and I'm like, wow, like this person violated my rights even before they hit me and put me in the hospital. Like even before that, you know, there was something going on with regards to my rights. And then the final thing was like, I had no hope. I didn't know what I believed to be wrong or right anymore. I had no joy in life. I felt like I had no worth or a vision. And for me, that's your spiritual pillar. So I literally sat down for weeks and I was like, what had made up this whole thing that I was?
Yeah.
And why, you know, like what did I have to fix to be able to get out and stay out?
Yeah.
So that was a process of figuring out the 7 pillars.
What made you step up and recognize it in your own relationship? Can we talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely.
And what the trajectory was, how that went, what the timeline was?
Totally. So I met a person, a guy. I was in was a woman in a relationship with a guy. They're like, the abusive relationships can obviously be
all over the spectrum.
All over the spectrum. I met this guy. In my gut, looking back, there was something that told me not the guy for you, but
isn't that always like we always, in hindsight, can go, I saw that, I had that little inkling. And then I was just like, I'm good. I'm okay.
Okay. Yeah, I can figure this out.
I mean, oh God.
Yeah. He, however, was very, very interested, and he kept coming and kept doing nice things for me and making me feel secure in a time when I didn't feel very secure.
How old are you?
I'm 29 at the time.
Okay.
Met this guy, super nice. It was great at the beginning. We moved very fast. Both of us said, let's not move fast, but it ended up moving very fast.
And you already had a son at this point.
Already had a son at this point. And we ended up living together very quickly. The first thing that started was I need some money to cover some issues. And so that was one of the first things that I started doing is, financial support. I think that the first thing that really happened in terms of anybody else was the isolation. So I had very good friends and people who loved me a lot. And the first thing that he started telling me is, your family members are controlling. People are envious of our relationship. Your friends don't really love you and support you. All these different things. And I started finding fault in the people around me. So I started pulling away from them. That was like the first mental part of it. So the financial thing started to happen. Then there was this mental part of it. I would say that the next thing was also mental, but it was like the slight nuance breaking you down. You are great, but
it's a slippery slope. It's like that you said that trust, and then it starts to just break down. It's not like it all happens at once, and it's not like it's all financial, it's all mental, it's all spiritual, like messy, and
it's very messy,
low, very insidious.
That's exactly the word that I use. It's very insidious. Then it was like, you're only the highest producer in your department at the bank because of how you look. It's not because you're smart.
Got it.
It's not because you figured out how to do this job well. And so slowly but surely, you start to feel weaker. You don't have anybody to build you up anymore. You're isolating yourself from people because obviously they don't love me or they're trying to control me. And then that was kind of the build up. Then I started noticing some behavior, disloyal behavior. His interaction with certain other women that I felt very uncomfortable with.
Oh, yeah.
But every time I asked that question, I'd be told that I'm jealous, that I'm crazy, making things up in my head, referring to past relationships to try to make me feel insecure about what I was feeling in that moment. Oh, but somebody in the past cheated on you, so you're thinking that this is you now. You're bringing baggage into this relationship. And ultimately, the first time there was physical violence was because I saw something that made me really uncomfortable with a very good friend of ours. And I said something about it after a dinner.
What was it?
I said that I can totally see that there's something very inappropriate going on because of the behavior that you guys have towards
What'd
each
they
other.
do?
We were at a dinner and there was a lot of
I like
hand
that.
touching. There was a lot of hand touching and just like,
And you know.
you know.
You know.
And I was like, I'm okay if this is happening. I'm okay to leave. I'm okay to. But the thing is that I needed him to tell me by that point in time, because of the control that he had over me mentally, that I was right.
How long had it been at this point?
It had been about probably 11 months to a year at this point. So at this point, I'm pretty much, I need him to tell me that I'm right about things. The gaslighting and everything else is going on. And he got so angry that the first violent interaction happened that night.
Did he hit you?
He did. Yeah.
Where?
On the side of the head, through I'm so sorry. With his flat hand. It was just, it's surreal. Like even thinking about it now, because I'd never been touched by another human being in that way. And you're stunned. Your head is swimming and everything else is happening. My son came into the room right after it happened. So now I'm trying to, make sure my son is okay. My head's still spinning. I can't even believe that it happened.
Yeah, there's a level of trying to manage everything, especially when a kid's involved, or other people. And it's like that codependent managing everything.
Yes, exactly.
So really that.
I mean, ultimately that relationship, there was many other things happened and I found them, together in a hotel more than a year and a half later. Lied to her husband and to me and everything else. So it happened to be true at the end of the day. But of course.
How long were y'all together then?
So we were together for almost 4 years.
And he hit you a year in?
A year in. I left that night. I came back a week later. I filed charges at a police station close to our house. That night, my cousin and his fiance came. They supported me. They took us in, my son and I. And it was probably a week or 10 days later that I was back, believing the good behavior. Because after bad behavior, Because after bad behavior, and that's also why it's really important to understand that abuse doesn't just mean bad behavior. It's not just when somebody screams at you, belittles you, takes things from you, isolates you. It's also the being extra nice after the bad behavior.
Yeah.
It's that I just did something really bad. You're going to probably leave me, because abuse is also not about somebody trying to leave you. That's where a lot of people get confused, because a lot of people say to victims, well, obviously he doesn't want to be with you, so why don't you just leave? But it's not that, because abuse is about control for benefit. So this person is trying to keep you because of some kind of a benefit that he or she is getting from you. So they will use the good behavior after the bad behavior to make sure you don't leave. Good behavior is the flowers, the apologies, the compliments, the promises to never do it again. And that's the stuff that gets you back into that relationship. So I had a lot of that.
I listened to a podcast, Something Was Wrong. I listened to that recently. And there was one about an abusive relationship. And she said that he would almost kill her. They got to a very violent point, and he had almost killed her and choked her. And then instead of exactly being nice, he was crying. Look how horrible I am.
Yeah.
I am so terrible. What's wrong with me? So she had to comfort him.
Yes.
And that table flip is so wild to me, because she was so confused at that point.
Yeah.
Like, wait, no, you're not, trying to comfort him. And probably, there's this love in you. So you want to rationalize like, well, I love this person, so they must not be all bad.
Yeah.
And that little twist on it too really is just a mind fuck.
Absolutely. And I think that the guilt and the remorse and the contrition, that's all part of the good behavior.
Okay.
It's all part of that process of, how do I make sure that this doesn't go in the wrong direction for me? Yeah.
How can I play it in every way?
And it's playing the victim. Yeah. I'm the victim of my circumstances. I'm such a terrible person. Look at what I did. Please come and save me. And a lot of women or men who are being abused have a savior complex. Like, I can save people. I can make things better. Like, it's my job maybe to save people. What happened?
Totally.
What happened when you were growing up? I think that's the question. Is it, did you have to be the savior potentially in your family relationship?
Did you?
No, well, I think that there are so many questions that victims should ask themselves about what makes you vulnerable to being abused or being in a relationship with a person like that. It's typically something in your youth.
Did you find anything?
Oh, I found a lot of it. We all can. No, I went through that whole exercise, and I think that's so important. There's a whole chapter devoted to what makes you vulnerable to abuse. And I'm not talking about the tricks that abusers use or like the practical things. I'm talking about your self-worth. Why is your self-worth in a place where you will allow somebody to demean you, take things from you, scream at you, potentially hit you, threaten you? There's something in your past that you potentially believe about yourself that has put you in a position where you think it's okay for another person to behave that way towards you. And you've got to go and dig deep and figure that out.
Yeah, you do. And there's a lot of things in there about, hating confrontation or wanting everyone to feel comfortable. And like, those are deep rooted and deep seated. I'm bringing up things from myself in particular, but yeah. I haven't experienced an abusive relationship like this, but I certainly am attuned to it. And that's why we're having this conversation too, because I know so many people have. Yeah. And I've done a lot of work with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense which is a nonpartisan grassroots organization that helps less people die by gun violence. And of course, one of the biggest percentages of those is women that are killed by a domestic partner. And
that is a fact. So in Harris County, the number one reason for women getting married is abusive relationships, getting killed.
Getting killed.
Yeah. Homicides or domestic violence related. Yeah.
And the number one killer of pregnant women is their partner, which is freaking mind-blowing to me in the United States anyway. But yeah, the number one killer of pregnant women.
And that's a crazy statistic. I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
but it makes sense.
I heard it. And I looked it up because I was like, there's no way. And
but it lines up.
It lines up. Yes.
Yeah.
Chilling.
The thing is that 1 out of 3 women will be in an abusive relationship at some point during their lifetime. So what does abuse mean? Again, IPV, DV, let's include all these things in the term abuse.
What was the other one you said?
Intimate partner violence and domestic violence. So IPV
What's
and
the difference?
DV. So domestic violence typically happens in a domestic setting. So it can be broader. It could be the children could be involved, like the parents who live in the home, or like it's a little bit broader. Intimate partner violence is typically between 2 partners. But I try to shy away actually from all that terminology and just focus on abuse, because all of these things, really the core is control. It is when one partner in a relationship uses a pattern of behavior to get and keep power and control over the other partner. And then that is kind of a generally accepted definition of abuse, IPV and DV. But then I add to that for benefit. Because a lot of people are in these relationships, but they go, but why would a person try to get control over me? Because I kept thinking, but he just told me how pathetic I am and what a loser I am, and that I couldn't do better than him, and that I'm not good at doing anything. So why would he want to control me? But the fact of the matter is that an abusive partner is getting something from you. A partner who thinks that you're pathetic and a loser, and even if it's just some of the time, 50% of the time they're being horrible, 50% of the time they're being extra nice, but somebody who thinks that you're terrible, who is not abusive, will leave you.
Yeah.
Because why would they want to be with you? An abusive person stays because they're getting something from you. That could be financial support, emotional support, sex, stature in the community, the appearance of a healthy family, care for their children. Whatever it is, there's some kind of a benefit. And like I always suggest to people, go and look at what they're getting from you, because they're getting something. And that's why they're still there. The moment they can no longer get that from you, when you get stronger or you have no money left, or you're completely worn out and emotionally destroyed and you can't even function anymore, that person most likely won't be there anymore. So don't think that you're worthless because there's a benefit that this abuser is getting from you.
For sure. For sure. Well, so you said your relationship's 4 years. I'm doing the math here.
Yeah.
Year in, you experienced physical violence for the first time. You're another year and a half. So we're at 2.5 years. You actually find him in bed with your friend at a hotel.
Yes.
There's still a year and a half left
Well,
here.
according to them, in the hotel room, having lied to both of their partners and nothing happened. But yeah, I didn't have a camera in the hotel room.
Oh my God, so don't.
No, it's fascinating.
Oh my God. Okay, so there's still another year and a half that this is going to go.
I left after that.
Okay.
I left for 6 months. I moved into a different house with my son. I stayed out. I started rebuilding my friendships with other people. He started coming back. Initially, I wasn't interested at all, but he kept coming, and eventually I went back to him.
Didn't that isolate you from your friends and family?
Oh, absolutely. But the isolation thing is just as complex as everything else, because the first thing is that this person will try to isolate you. It's easier to control an individual who doesn't have support systems, right?
Totally.
So they will potentially engage with your friends and your family members and your colleagues to kind of put them off. But they might also come to you and tell you that these are bad people and they don't have your best intentions at heart. So you should cut yourself off from them. So that's the second part of it. So you start distancing yourself from them. And then, truth be told, abuse is complicated. So some people look at this and they go, she's lost her mind. Or this looks very terrible. I don't want to be around this. Or, and so because they can't understand what's going on, because they don't understand what abuse is, they might also be distancing themselves. So the isolation is such a complex thing. But yeah, you end up being very isolated.
Yeah. Oh, it makes me so sad. Well, so you go back and then what?
So I go back, we get engaged to get married.
Oh,
It's wonderful. It's the best decision ever.
Were you happy or are you feeling confused? How are you feeling at that point?
At
were you
this
nervous or were you thrilled?
Constantly nervous. You're constantly nervous. Like being nervous is really a constant state that you're in. Anxiety, nerves. I think it helps those feelings, the feelings of being overwhelmed in a dark place really helps you to stay in the relationship because you can't really think clearly.
Oof.
And you're just going.
Point.
Yeah,
good point.
You're just going. Yeah. Like, I'm just going to get through this moment, this day, this whatever. And then, of course, there are the good times. So then you go, oh, but it's so wonderful. I'm so relaxed for the next 2-3 hours. And then, you kind of go back into this thing. Lots of confusion. You don't trust yourself. You've been gaslit.
Yeah.
So you don't believe your own reality anymore. You don't believe your own mind. So, you're like, I don't want to think about it because obviously there's something wrong with me. And so you get engaged and you're like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Everything's going to be fine.
How old's your son at this point?
My son is now 9.
What's he saying?
So I'm going to tell you because that's how it finally broke. So we ended up a week before our wedding. It was the night.
A week before. Oh, God, this is juicy. Okay.
So he gets very angry at me. I decided that the best way to deal with it. Because
what's he mad about? Something stupid?
Something I honestly can't remember. I said something that he didn't want to hear or asked a question that he didn't want to hear, whatever it was. And I decided to remove myself from the situation. So I go up the stairs and I'm kind of hiding because I do want to be away from him. So while he's so angry, he's not going to find me. So I'm in the bathroom and the door is closed. I'm kind of sitting next to the, the marble slab where the sinks are. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I know that things are going to calm down. It's going to be fine. He finds me, he walks in. Now he's angry because I walked away. Screams a few things at me. I scream a few things back at him. He takes my head and he hits it against the marble slab. So, oh my God. So now my head is bleeding. I'd never had like a bleeding injury like that in my life. So, because a head wound, by the way, head wounds bleed. It is.
Yeah, bleed big time.
Big time.
I'm so
So
sorry.
now I'm like, it's a long time ago. Thank you. I'm literally, now I can see it almost like a movie.
Yeah,
I still feel it, but it's not as good. So,
but you're not like living it.
Yeah.
I get it.
so now I run outside. I try to get to the neighbors. The neighbors aren't there. There's a lot of blood. And I realize that, okay, but wait, what if I didn't scream at him? Would he have done this? Like, it could be me, because as I was running out, he didn't try to stop me. He said that nobody would believe me and they think I'm crazy. So am I crazy? Did it really happen that way? So I go into the house. He makes me calm down for about an hour, eventually drives me to the hospital, doesn't go inside with me, leaves me at the door in case I say something. The doctors go, what's going on? I tell them that I hit my head on the balustrade as I was going down the stairs or some story. They look at me. I'm crying too much. They bring in another doctor. The doctor looks at me. He goes, repeat the story. Plausible deniability. Nobody wants to really get involved. I tell them the same story, but I'm crying. And they're like looking at me like this, but they're also like, we're not going to really get involved here. So I leave. The next day, I had my bachelorette party. I made up a bunch of lies. About what had happened.
It's like a bandage on your.
I had a bandage on my eyebrow. Yeah, I had a bandage on there. Made up a story. After the fact, some of my friends said to me, "We knew that something was wrong, but how to handle it, how to get involved." A week later, we got married, and then 3 months.
We
got married. We got married.
Okay.
So about 3 months after the wedding, I'm driving home from school with my son, and he says to me, "Mom, I think that X is starting to behave towards you again the way that he behaved towards you before you left him last time." And I sit in the car and I think, I am going to ruin my child's life.
Yeah.
I'm going to, either he will become an abuser or he will be abused himself. Something's going to go wrong in his life if I don't take action. So I called my mom, who was a very big supporter of me and my son. And she was there a couple of days later, and there was a massive fallout and lots of drama. But about 2-3 days later, he was out of the house and I was packing up, ready to leave.
Yeah.
So that's how it all came to a close.
I wonder if you hadn't had your son, have you wondered that?
I've wondered that a lot. I've wondered both ways. I'm like, why did I stay? Why did I allow him to see as much of it as he did? I mean, he's received a lot of trauma counseling. Obviously, we're very trauma-informed, counseling-oriented family. I do regret staying as long as I did stay. And that's also why I just advise people who have children, or whether the children are with their abusive partner or with a previous partner, just really consider that you're not building a forever home that is safe for the children. It is not. Like, for me, I kept thinking, this is the forever home. We're going to make this work. We're not going to break the family. We're not going to do this kind of harm. We're going to figure it out. But you're not doing that, because the example.
Had you been divorced before?
I had been divorced before. Yeah.
And I mean, that can affect you too. You're like, no, I'm not going to.
Don't want to get divorced again.
I've been divorced twice. And my second divorce, I was fucking pissed. Yeah, it's not language.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah. But I remember filing and just being so mad that I was doing this again because I know how hard it is. And on my kids, So anyway.
And you feel like a failure.
Well, everyone tells you are. They think failed marriage.
Absolutely.
I just am like, I reject that title. But yeah, it's in there rattling around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many times am I going to fail? How much damage am I doing? What is wrong with me? Again, instead of just trying to figure out, why do I allow this kind of behavior towards me?
Yeah.
You're constantly looking for fault with yourself. And it's because you're constantly being told that everything that happens to you in life is your fault. Yes. You have to take personal responsibility for your life 100%. But that doesn't mean that you don't look back and start at the beginning and figure out what are some of the things that predisposed you to certain types of tolerances of behavior or behaviors or whatever else it is. You've got to go back and you've got to figure out what happened, how did it happen, who was responsible for it. It could have been you who was responsible for it. And then you've got to go and forgive the person who did it to you, who allowed you to start feeling this way. You've got to forgive them or forgive yourself or whatever, because without that, you can't really move forward. But it's okay to place the blame where it belongs for things that happened in your youth without holding on to the grudge or the anger or whatever, but just to understand this did happen to me. And therefore it allowed me to tolerate this kind of behavior. And now I've wrapped it up and I'm going to move on from this.
That's really powerful. Everything that you just said.
But it's so true because, I have wonderful parents. I have really great parents. And my parents did certain things that caused me to believe that certain behaviors towards me are okay. It's not because they're bad parents. It's because in that moment, they didn't know better. They were trying their best. They couldn't always be there for every single thing. So I had to go and say, this is actually potentially because my parents' behavior.
Yeah.
But I know they're good and I love them and I forgive them for, inadvertently causing this to happen. And now I'm done with it. And now it's mine.
Yeah.
And now I move forward and I decide now what to do with that.
Yeah. I always think that we're probably fucking our children up in our own special way. Like you try to avoid what your parents did, but then you're like, I am probably doing something I can't even see right now.
I like that to my son. Many times I'm like, I'm making mistakes.
Right.
And don't think it's okay if I make mistakes. It's okay if my mistakes are wrong and you can tell me if they're wrong. And if I can't fix them, then you can know that they're wrong.
Right.
And that's okay.
I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I'm doing all the time. And I'm doing my best. And so let's figure it out and have open communication is probably the best part of that. Right?
Absolutely.
Like knowing that they're safe to tell you.
Absolutely.
Right. That avoids that cycle of abuse in different forms, right?
Yeah. Into perpetuity, right? You've got to try to cut the cycle.
Yeah.
But the other thing is then of course there could be like the real hectic things. I'm not saying that, things that you felt were bad weren't as bad, but then there are the things like sexual abuse as a child.
Oh, for sure.
If you were sexually abused, even if you were just sexually exploited, because I see a lot, what's amazing to me that I see is that girls just being told, and boys, it's happening to boys too and everybody else, but just at a young age being told that you should wear that tiny little bikini because your body is it's very important for you to use your body in a certain way or like to show your body in a certain way. I don't think there's anything wrong with little girls wearing bikinis. That is fine. But it is the way that the girls are being told that is their value, that they're more valuable because they look cute in something or because they dress a certain way. That's kind of sexualizing a child at a young age because if you want to wear a bikini, it's fantastic. It's fun. You can move around easily, whatever it is. But it is the way that you interact with that child at that age. So there are these subtle things that can happen. You can be sexually abused, but you can also be sexually kind of valued. Your sexuality being overvalued at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And things like that, the amount of harm that can cause to a young person's mind, like my value is the way that I look, therefore everything else is secondary, therefore this is the main thing that I need to focus on. And when somebody tells me that I'm not pretty enough, then I'm going to be weaker, I'm going to feel worse about myself, and that person now has a little bit more control over me.
Well, that just hit home. I mean, I was like told I was cute from all the time. And I thought maybe everybody was told that. I was cute, I had like curly hair and big cheeks and all that. And I don't know, I've tried to be real conscious of it with my own girls, but dang.
It's the subtle things.
It is the subtle thing. And I think we make that like sort of, we think in our minds like things happen big and obvious.
Yes.
And they're just not big and obvious in the real world.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of gray area. It's not just this or this. And it's not so like cut and dry.
Yeah. And the other thing is that just remember, when we are adults and we look back at the things that happened to us when we were children, we're looking at those things as adults. So in the chapter where we do the self-worth work, because this is a workbook that I wrote, it is like every chapter has like, here's what you're going to learn. Here's a little bit of a narrative. Here's the stuff that you need to know, like the real content, the meat. And here's the exercise that you need to do to make sure that you understand what you just learned.
Awesome.
So in the self-worth chapter, it's the longest exercise of all because the work you have to do is write down all of your life experiences. And you've got to do this again and again and again because we start with like one page, but I want 10 pages, double-sided. What are the things you remember? Split out the things that made you feel good about yourself. Great. Use those, focus on those, use those to make you feel great over the next period as you're getting out. But now let's look at the things that make you feel uncertain, you don't know how you feel about it, or maybe make you feel bad about yourself. You've got to go back to each one of those events and feel the way you did then. How did it make you feel in that moment? Because as an adult, we rationalize. We go, oh, that was insignificant because I'm an adult and I know that that didn't mean anything. But when somebody told you your teeth were skew, or if you fell down the stairs at school and kids laughed at you, how did you feel in that moment? That's the feeling that you need to deal with, not the rationalized, I've been through hell and back adult version of the feelings of that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, because it's very different in that moment, how you feel about yourself.
Yeah. And then acknowledging it and what?
Forgiving the people for doing it, forgiving yourself for, carrying it with you for such a long time. If it was something serious, you may have to take some serious action. If there was sexual abuse or something along those lines, you may want to take action. You can choose whether you want to or not, but you've got to forgive those people for the situation, for what happened, for how they made you feel. Forgive, forget, let it go. Forgive yourself for carrying it with you, for it weakening you. And then that you may have to do that a couple of times because again, this is a process, but letting it go, and forgiveness is the way to let things go.
Yeah. What does forgiveness mean to you?
Forgiveness is not about somebody else. It's not really a gift that you're giving to somebody else.
I feel like it's kind of a charged word. Some people just don't really like the word of it. So that's why I'm asking. But yes, it's for yourself.
Forgiveness means letting go of the anger, resentment, or control that a certain emotion that somebody else caused in you is causing you to have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more about you. So somebody does something to you. It makes you feel a certain way. You feel angry, resentful, hateful, whatever it is. What it is going, that person cannot control me. They cannot. Their actions or their behavior or their words or whatever cannot control me. I let it go. I decide that I won't allow that to control me. So I literally go, whether they meant it or they didn't mean it, whether they understood what they were doing or they didn't understand what they were doing, I let it go because it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with that person and their experience and their mental health and what they're trying to do to other people. So for me, forgiveness is an internal process.
Yeah. Maybe it's like we have adopted the phrase forgive someone. And, that's maybe we're using it the wrong way. Maybe we just need to say, I forgive, and that means you take the situation in a different way rather than internalizing it.
Yeah, you release the effect that behavior or those words had on you.
Yeah.
You're releasing it. And so it's not like you're giving that person grace and going to them and going, oh, you're fine, you're great. No, it's like I release
it's okay.
the emotions that this causes inside of me. For me, I think that's what forgiveness is more.
That's well said. I really like that. I release the emotions that this causes inside of me. Yep. Beautiful.
This podcast is sponsored by Wands. Wands creates luxurious pleasure practice tools that help people become more connected to their bodies. They have a huge selection of incredible items like yoni eggs, the most gorgeous crystal pleasure wands you've ever seen, free bleed blankets, and my favorites, the trademarked glass cervix wand and the Venus wand, which is their heaviest wand made of stainless steel, and their new ecstatic vibrator. This company is woman-owned and creates products designed to help you become more connected to your body and your pleasure and support the healing of pelvic pain. Get yours today in their always discreet packaging at wands.com. That's Wands with 2 A's, WAANDS.com, and use my link in the show notes to get 10% off or enter the code Amy Edwards at checkout. Again, that's Wands, WAANDS.com. This podcast is sponsored by The Collective ATX. If you're looking for the best in hair extensions, it's The Collective ATX. They do mine, and I won't go anywhere else. I've tried them all over the years, and finally, I've found what makes my real hair stronger and fuller, and even works with my natural curl. They keep all their extensions in-house, so there's no wait, and they specialize in no damage to your natural hair like traditional hair extension methods. Plus, they're pros at color and covering gray. I have literally never in my life been happier with my color. They were named a top 200 salon by Salon Today in 2023. They've changed my hair journey. Let them change yours. The Collective ATX link is in the show notes.
All right, so let's talk about, I had this kind of question coming up. Like, what if somebody is in a situation, but they're being controlled all the time and they're caught looking at your book or something?
Yes.
How do people look at it, like, on the down low?
Right. So that's an excellent question. So if your phone is being controlled, if whatever you're reading is being
order it or,
Yeah. So the best thing, and I'm trying to figure out different types of solutions for this going forward. But the main thing that I always suggest is clear your browser history. If you have a moment to go and, read something or look at something, always clear your browser history as much as you can. I don't know if people have anti-spyware, those kinds of things. That's like a practical solution for doing it. You can go to a public library, make an excuse to go to a public library, get a book there, go into the computer system there and try to read it there. If there's an internet cafe, I know those things don't really exist, but if there's another way to get somebody else's device that you can read this on or learn from it, if you're ready to leave, you can go to, one of the support organizations. You can call up Harris County Domestic Violence Coordinating Council and say, I'm getting ready to leave. Is there a way that you can help me to access this book or access this content? This is a very difficult thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's too bad you can't make a stealth copy and put the title. It's like Intro to Quilting or something.
So there is a fake cover suggestion for this book, which I don't want to say what the name of the cover will be, but it's a fake cover for the book. And so when somebody sees you reading it, they will think that it's this book that's very boring. It sounds very boring that nobody's going to want to read. But the problem is that somebody can still open that book. Somebody can still go to that book, because the level of control that you're under when you're in an abusive relationship. I mean, somebody's looking at your phone, they're hacking into your emails. Your kinds of things. The other thing that I suggest is, another email address as soon as you can. Something that, you don't have stored. The inbox is not stored on your phone or on your laptop or whatever. That's one of the first things, because also as you're preparing to get out of that relationship, you need a storage place for your proof and everything that you're collecting about the relationship. So, yeah.
Did you ever feel like your life was in danger?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I think my mom made me alert to it. She gave me the statistics of how many women actually end up dying in abusive relationships. And she said to me, you're going to die if you stay at some point, because it turned physical, right?
You feel sick for a second.
Yeah. Yeah. Because and this is really important for people to understand. Many, if not most, abusive relationships will never turn physical. You can be abused your entire life and somebody's never lifted a hand against you, because the Department of Justice defines abuse, intimate partner violence, domestic violence, as the 1 out of 3 people who will get harmed in these relationships. The physical violence that they talk about can include PTSD, sexually transmitted diseases, the need for victim services, or also physical harm. So even the Department of Justice understands that this is about more than just somebody hitting you. But yes, absolutely. If there's physical violence, you are already in a unique group, much higher risk than other people who are being abused. And you should take it very seriously. Even if somebody just slaps you one time, that is a big step for a person to take in terms of violence. Choking, if it doesn't kill you, it can harm your brain forever. When oxygen stops flowing to your brain, you can get the type of brain injuries that NFL players get just by being hit against the head or being choked. So these are very, very serious things. And if you go, oh, he's never hit me, he did choke me No. He shoved me. No, but shoving, what's it going to turn into next? What if there's an object that he shoves you into? So it's like victims should take that very seriously. Any type of physical violence.
Absolutely. They say that the most dangerous time is when you're going to leave.
Yes.
So maybe you want to speak to that for a minute, because that kind of reminded me of your book. Like, that's that really crucial time when they know you're gonna leave or they suspect it, and the control is threatened.
So let me quickly take you just through the process in the book. The book is divided into 3 steps.
Okay.
Because then
I'll do that.
Yeah, because the book is divided into 3 steps. The first step is diagnose. So the first thing is you need to know whether you're in an abusive relationship or not.
Okay.
If you're not convinced that the problem exists, you will not solve the problem. If we don't believe a problem exists, why would we work on it? First step.
Great.
Are you being abused?
Okay. Right.
First. Second is, why is it happening? You've got to analyze what makes a human being abusive towards another human being. Why are you vulnerable to abuse? What are the tools, tricks, and tactics that abusers use to get and keep you in an abusive relationship? And what are the practical reasons you stay? And the third step, you've got to plan and act. So planning means taking these 7 pillars of existence, taking stock of them. Where are you strong? Where are you weak? Mentally, you're not going to be in a strong place. You need mental health support immediately. Financially, you might have a lot of money. Maybe you have no money. You got to figure out where you are with each one of these 7 pillars of existence. The next step after that is work on each of these pillars to get them to a minimum level of sustainability, which means that if you leave, you're not automatically going to go back because you have a clear weakness, like no money, no place to stay, no spiritual support group, no mental health support. These things have to be in place just so you will not go back. That's all you need. And then once you're out, you've got to work on each one of these pillars for the rest of your life to keep them strong and make them stronger and stronger and stronger, so you never go back to that person and never get into another abusive relationship. So that's the process. Now, if you realize you've been abused and you can analyze why it's happened, the next step, the plan and act, like you said, that's the dangerous point in time. You've got to keep it to yourself. You've got to not talk about it at all. At some point, as you're starting to prepare, you're going to start feeling that you want to tell this person, I'm leaving, I'm ready, I got this.
Yeah.
And they will re-strategize where they might physically destroy you so you can't leave, but also they will re-strategize and figure out ways to get you to stay. So not speaking about it, not talking about your plans, having a few people around you who will support you and are on your side, very important. If you are in an abusive relationship where you think this person is going to kill you, then you need to find shelter immediately. Then you don't plan and act. Then the day to leave is today. And that's hard. It's harder for you. Running is harder than planning. But if your life is in danger, and especially if you have children, their lives are in danger too. So then you go and you'll figure it out. And you'll connect with the nonprofit organizations, connect with those organizations are there to help you. Yes, they don't have unlimited resources, but you will be surprised at how much they can do with very little. And how they can support.
I think when I've been listening to those different podcasts and stuff, a lot of times people didn't know what to do, and they would just call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. I was like, what a smart thing to do. Like, I don't know if I would have thought of that in that situation, and it's such a valuable resource. And even if they didn't do anything and take action right then, it at least reframed it to people who were educated and could say, yes, this is abuse that you're experiencing.
Yes, and you just hit the nail on the head. You have to first think that you're in a domestic violence situation before you will call a hotline like that.
Well, they weren't, there were some that weren't sure,
right.
But they still called it. You're right. I mean, that's the number that they called, not some other number.
This is my advice. If something feels really wrong in your relationship and it keeps happening, like it's not just a one-time thing where somebody got angry at you once. If there was a cycle of kind of this behavior where things are good and then it's bad and then it's terrible and then it's good and then it's bad and then it's terrible, pick up the phone, call a hotline, ask them what domestic violence means. Ask them what intimate partner violence means. Let them explain it to you, and then you can see if this applies to you. Or go into my website or, one of these resources, go there and go and learn what it means.
Did you see this present in any other relationships in your life?
So
Friends or
yeah, I think well, obviously I now know a lot of people who have been in the abusive relationships, just because the more you talk about it, the more people start talking
maybe
about
like friendships that were toxic and unhealthy because you had patterns that you needed to break.
Absolutely. I think that the things that harm my self-worth definitely created patterns of behavior in me that I needed to break. But also, I think that the relationship that I'm telling you about isn't the only abusive relationship that I've been in. Other ones were maybe abusive, but in different ways and not as severe. A little bit of control, definitely. A little bit of breaking your spirit. A little bit of telling you that you can't do this or you're not good enough for this. I think that is something that unfortunately everybody experiences. Everybody who ends up in an abusive relationship that they leave, they're going to realize it's not the first abusive relationship. There have been other ones before that as well. And it kind of like lays the groundwork for the relationship, for future relationships. You tolerate a little bit more every time you don't do the work after a bad relationship or if something bad happens in a relationship. So every time somebody leaves a relationship, figure out, why did you leave? What were the reasons? Take a little bit of stock before you move into the next relationship. Make sure that there wasn't something negative in there, maybe that you did or that somebody else did, that is going to lay the groundwork for a worse relationship in the future.
Yeah.
So jumping from relationship to relationship makes people feel secure. I totally get that. But my advice is, don't do that. Just take a little bit of time and figure out, what was the demise of this relationship.
Absolutely. All right. What have we missed on this? Like what else do we need to address in the guide that can help people that we need to talk about in this podcast?
Friends and family.
Okay.
I think that not only victims or potential victims, and some people don't like that word, I'm sorry, I use it just to make it simple. Victim, you might be a victim now, you're going to be a survivor soon. So,
okay.
But not only victims or potential victims of abuse should be educating themselves about abuse. This is a huge problem. 1 out of 3 women, 1 out of 9 men that underreport, and 1 out of 2 people in the LGBTQ plus community will be affected by this. So I think that any individual should take a little bit of time and learn about what it is. It's going to do 2 things. It's going to help you not get into an abusive relationship, and it's going to help you to support somebody else and be sensitive to what they're saying and what you're seeing to potentially help them out of an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
This is a big enough problem that we should be all thinking about this and all be paying attention to this. That's the one thing that I would add.
And that's why we're sitting here, right? Like, how can we become more of an ally? How can we recognize it more? How can we help people more? How can you order the book for people or the guide for people if they need it and then leave it at your house?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good idea. And also, by the way, when the guide is out early next year, the key thing is that I'm going to try to make it available as much as possible through these organizations for free, because it needs to be for free, because some of us have financial resources. Most of us in these relationships do not have those resources at all. So, and I would encourage people to go through these organizations, get a QR code, and then get that resource for free, because that's the whole point. Then you have the support system that's starting to take shape around you, these organizations that are supporting you, and then you can learn this. So you're like attacking your problem from all sides.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Oh my gosh, when does it come out? Do you have a date set?
It'll be early next year, but I don't have the date.
Early 2025.
Early 2025. People can pre-register on the website, and I will get back to everybody. Yeah, everybody after that. And if they can go through, a domestic violence organization and say, I was referred by this organization, please put that in there so we can make sure that it gets to the right place.
For sure.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to leave people with? Any thought of hope or a message that you want to leave people with today?
It is amazing on the other side.
Mm.
It is so much work. It is not easy to get here. It feels a little bit lonely at times. You're going to want to give up and just choose the easy route out, which is another bad relationship or back with your abuser. But I promise you, on the other side, it is like you can breathe again. It's like the light changes. Like all of a sudden the world is like in Technicolor, and you go, this is who I was maybe when I was like that little girl before everything started going wrong in life. And when I was just happy and I remember like running around, it feels like that. It is so relieving. And so my last thought is just, if you start the process, just keep going. Because one morning you're going to wake up and you're going to be completely out and you're going to be your true, original, authentic person that you were meant to be before the bad things start happening to you.
Mm-hmm. And the more we can lift everybody up, the happier our entire society gets.
Absolutely.
It's like it's a bigger problem than an individual.
Oh, yes.
Much.
It is definitely a societal problem. And it's not getting better.
No, it's not.
It's not, because it's so closely tied, unfortunately, to mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that mental health in the United States isn't where we want it to be. We've got a lot of work to do. And I think luckily lots of organizations are starting to realize that. The big foundations, the people that really can make an impact in the world, they're starting to realize that we've got to focus on this stuff.
Do you think it's really that conscious with an abuser to do these things? Is it consciously decided, or are they just functioning from a different spot where, like, I guess I'm trying to make sense of it and there's not a lot of making sense of it, but.
So I'm always cautious when I talk about this for several reasons. The first reason is there is a lot of disagreement in the mental health community over whether people who behave abusively are doing consciously or can change their behavior. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the reality of it is that many abusers do not intentionally harm their partners or their victims. This is a mental health issue. The ability to harm another human being without feeling guilt or remorse, or without being able to change your own behavior, it's a mental health issue. Now, whether the abuser is aware of it or is not aware of it, and whether they're doing it unintentionally or intentionally, should not matter to the victim. Because if their behavior is not going to change, you will be stuck in the cycle of abuse for the remainder of your existence, or for as long as you choose to be with this person. You cannot change your abuser.
That's such a great point. That's a great point to make within that. It doesn't even matter because you can't fix it.
You can't fix it.
Yeah. And I certainly wasn't trying to imply that.
No, I know.
Yeah, you see.
No, absolutely. But I think that's the main thing for me. Then if you get out and you want to become a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a neurological researcher to try to figure out how to help people who cannot change their own behavior, fantastic, do that on the other side of reclaiming your life and your safety and your, joy and happiness.
What drove you to create this guide to say, I got to do something to help others?
Because I realized how difficult it was for me, and I had a lot of support. I mean, compared to a lot of people, I had a lot of support. I was like, what went on? What happened?
Wild.
I was just like, and why aren't there any resources in normal English that are not PhD theses, that are not like impossible for me to understand, or memoirs? Memoirs are great because they're relatable, but they're not going to help me.
Yeah.
I was searching and searching and searching. And so as I worked with more and more victims volunteering, they were like, oh, holy smokes, I understand what you're saying. This makes sense. I did 1, 2, 3, and I'm here now. I was there, I did this, now I'm here. And so they suggested, write it down. And I started writing it down. I thought it was going to be a lot easier to write it down. And then it got very deep, and I had to work with a lot of neurologists and therapists and psychologists and even like financial people and all these different people to really understand how to talk about these topics with legal people. And so I thought it was going to be a smaller project. It was a bigger project, but now it's a roadmap. There's a roadmap in English, normal English that anybody can understand. No big words. It's just like, I don't know what they're saying. Even the word manipulation, if you think about the word manipulation, what does it mean?
I know. I don't know.
Nobody knows unless you explain this happens and this happens and this happens. Then you change your behavior based on what happened here. That's manipulation.
Yeah.
Okay, great. What's control? What does it even mean? This happens and this. So I just made it simple.
Smart. So smart.
Solution.
Good. And who knows how many people it's going to help. Oh,
if it helps one person,
person,
then I would be happy.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else we need to add before we wrap up?
I don't think so. You had amazing questions.
Oh, it was
Like,
really,
it was really good to talk to you. I can see that you really care about this topic because you've really thought about this. And
I have.
Yeah.
And I listen to a lot of podcasts and true crime and stuff like that. And this is such a important issue. And even with Moms Demand, I joined Moms Demand to do something about school shootings and then to find this out. And to understand that like one of the main things with gun violence is just quick access to a gun, and suicide is the leading gun violence death statistic, or whatever whatever I'm trying to say. Like, that is just so sobering. And you're like, a lot of things are so preventable. So how can we get better at that, as a society?
Yeah, we've got to focus on mental health, and we've got to start early. We've got to start with pre-K. We've got to start with kids right at the beginning because they're exposed to a lot. And it's not only what's happening in the home with the parents or the friends or the family members. It's also what's happening on social media and the media and everything else. There's a lot on young kids these days. They're getting exposed to a lot. The one thing that I would add, though, is that great work is being done. Really good work. I'm not so familiar with what's happening in Austin, but the Harris County, administration and the leaders in that community, elected leaders, are doing incredible work. They have identified this as an issue. They're putting, they're throwing money at the problem. I hate to say that, but they're putting
resources behind it
where their mouths are. Yeah, exactly. And they're really being thoughtful about this. And we have great commissioners, great DA's office, great police department, great sheriff's office. The organizations, they're all coordinated through the Harris County Domestic Violence Coordinating Council. So they're all working together to figure out if somebody comes in to the system, how do we all, like legal services, shelter, like all these different things, how do we all work together to create a holistic solution for a victim instead of just, here's a place to stay for 3 nights, good luck for all the rest of the stuff. So I'm very amazed at what Harris County is doing. I'm going to learn more about Austin, but there's good people working on this problem.
That's it's in Texas. And so if we can do it in Texas, we can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
And so no, that's so encouraging. And just believing people who say it and not dismissing a situation like, well, you haven't been hit. You know what I mean? Like just taking it seriously across the board. It is so powerful.
Yeah, waiting until somebody dies or is injured permanently for the rest of their lives is probably not the right approach to solving this issue.
Right.
Exactly.
Surprisingly. Yeah. All right. Well, everything will be in the show notes about how to contact you, but it is thegettingoutguide.com. And so maybe you can share any other links that anybody needs.
It's thegettingoutguide.com. It's on Instagram. It's the same on Facebook. It's the same thing. There's an email address if somebody wants to get in touch and ask a question.
Oh, awesome. I'll try to put that. I don't know that I have that, so I'll make sure and put that in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
Somebody just really needs an advance copy or something. Who knows?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Or has a quick question or needs direction to an organization that can support them or in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me a little overcome with emotion. I'm glad to do this episode and glad to talk about these things because I listen to so many podcasts that are like this, like I was saying. And I found myself wanting to do more to help people that are in situations that are toxic or that they need to get out of or that are abusive. So
yeah,
I'm really glad. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, good for you for really stepping up and trying to help others. Really beautiful.
And you do the same, by the way, with your podcast.
Thank you.
This was awareness. And the main thing is awareness.
It is. It is awareness.
And people have to be able to find this everywhere. They should not have to search for it. It should be, search engine results. There should be thousands of resources like this.
Agreed.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Everyone, follow Ronel Golden and the Getting Out Guide. And everything will be in the show notes. And I just want to say a huge thank you for being here. Maybe you're a true crime nerd like me. And so, these are practical tips that we can share with anyone because this stuff really does happen. Sometimes it seems a little bit removed. And like Ronel was saying, it's everywhere. It's 1 in 3. And there's stuff that's not reported and stuff that's not recognized. So how can we all become more keenly aware of it and help others when they need it? So really beautiful, or help ourselves when we need it. So Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to you. And I want you to keep shining brighter and brighter. That's what this is all about. It's about all of us shining as brightly as possible and really living up to the potential that's within us and our happiest existence and our happiest version, whatever that looks like for you. I love you so much. Follow, rate, review, all the good things for this show, wherever you're listening. I would love a review if you have a couple of minutes, and all the other episodes and everything are at amyedwards.info. And I just love you so much. Keep shining. Till next time.
Thank you so much for being here. Please rate, review, and follow us. And we'd love to hear your feedback. Keep shining bright.